Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians are preparing themselves before the beginning of another massive combined drone and missile attack that most likely is going to happen within the next 48 hours. The Russians are about to finish their redeployment process. Everything is ready for attack, and you know that several experts reported that the Russians had the possibility to attack Ukraine even during the previous night between the 10th and the 11th of February, but the Russians decided to postpone this attack, and most likely the Russians decided to postpone the attack because the Ukrainians launched their own massive attack in the direction of the city by the name of Volgograd. Here we have a video published by pro-Russian sources and by pro-Ukrainian sources. Here we can see the city of Volgograd, we can see explosions. The Ukrainians, as a result of this attack, managed to damage something. The sources are saying that Ukrainians attacked oil refinery, the Volgograd oil refinery, this territory. This morning, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that during the night, the Russians destroyed 108 drones, and 49 of them were destroyed above the Volgograd Oblast, and 29 of them above the Rostov Oblast. So, according to these data, the Ukrainians most likely launched their drones somewhere from the Dnipro region. The drones passed the Rostov region, then they answered the Volgograd region, and the Russians destroyed most of the drones somewhere in this area. So this is the attack that was carried out by Ukrainians. Another attack took place in the area of the city of Bryansk. This attack also took place somewhere during the night. According to information we have, here we can see how Ukrainians damaged some substation to the southwest of the settlement. The Russians from their side struck back, and the Russians were attacking mainly the city of Zaporozhye. We have lots of videos, lots of updates from this area. Here we can see pictures, here we can see some video. Zaporozhye is under massive drone attack, huge fire at the landing site. So later, Russian sources managed to geolocate the exact position that the Russians attacked, and according to information we have, the Russians attacked this substation that is located on the territory of the city of Zaporozhye in its southern part. So as for the upcoming massive attack from the Russian side, most of all, the Russians once again will attack the objects of critical infrastructure through the entire territory of Ukraine, and they know that now there is no problem to understand what exactly, for example, the Russians are going to attack. Once again, the Russians will attack substations, and the Russians will attack power stations. For example, during the previous attack, the Russians damaged the Ladizhin power station. And if you have access to the satellite pictures, you might see that currently, according to the latest updates, this station doesn't operate. I would like to remind you that this station was attacked during the, let's say, early February attacks. And here we can see the video that was published on the 4th of February. As you can see, as a result of attack, a very big part of the power station was completely damaged and reduced to ruins. So according to this satellite picture, the Russians destroyed this corner of this construction, so this territory was damaged, and this is exactly the part of the power station that was completely destroyed. So now we understand that most likely the Russians are not going to attack this power station because this power station is not operating. The same thing is with the Zelenodolsk power station, which is located to the south of the city of Kryvyi Rog, and according to the latest pictures, this power station is not operating as well. But according to the latest satellite pictures, the Kharkiv power station number 5 is operating. Today, on the 6th of February, was published this picture where we can see a smoke above the power station, which means that the power station is working. So this is the reason that this most likely the Russians will attack this territory during the upcoming attack. But at the same time, I would like to remind you that the mayor of a city of Kharkiv made lots of statements that almost every single object of energy infrastructure was destroyed on the territory of the city of Kharkiv and the Kharkiv region. But most likely he was bluffing, or of course he was bluffing. He was trying to disrupt the Russian attention and to force the Russians not to attack this territory. So this upcoming attack is going to take place within the next 48 hours, and Zelensky once again is trying to find a solution how to avoid this attack, how to postpone this attack, how to postpone all attacks on the spring or summer period of time when everything will be much better for Ukraine. And this morning, pro-Ukrainian sources and pro-Russian sources began publishing lots of updates on the matter of the presidential elections on the territory of Ukraine. Ukraine, under US pressure, is urgently preparing a referendum on peace with Russia and the presidential elections. Kiev has begun planning to hold a presidential election and a referendum on possible peace agreements with Russia. According to the publication, both votes could take place before May 15. This step is being taken under pressure from the US administration. Furthermore, FT claims that Zelensky plans to announce the elections on the referendum on February 24th. So, during the anniversary of the beginning of the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, the Trump administration wants to only the elections in Ukraine to be held by May 15th, but also the implementation of the entire package of peace agreements, including the withdrawal of the Ukraine armed forces from Donbas. At the same time, all these plans could be derailed if Kiev refuses to withdraw troops from Donbas. And you know that right after these statements and these articles were published by pro-Ukrainian sources, Zelensky emphasized and added that no elections are possible without security guarantees. So as you can see, Zelensky wants wants a complete energy truce, and if energy truce happens, takes place, then most likely he will promise to hold elections in Ukraine. But you know that 15th of May is very far from the current date, and everything is possible during this period of time, and lots of people, including Zelensky, at the end can change his mind and so on. So most likely the Russians will not accept this situation, these demands and these proposals from Ukrainian side. The Russians most likely will continue. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next, but obviously the situation continues deteriorating. Another important thing is the current situation along the line of combat contact.
Er du klar på en til?
Husk, at du med indbetalingsflex fra AP Pension selv bestemmer, hvor meget du indbetaler til pensionen, hvis du nu lige skulle få brug for lidt luft i økonomien. Hos AP Pension er vi altid med dig hele vejen.
Let me try to find a new beginning.
Hvad så, Victor?
And first, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, where the Ukrainians continue their counter-offensive operation. During the previous days, lots of interesting updates were published from the western Zaporozhye direction. First of all, pro-Ukrainian mappers adjusted their maps according to their changes. There used to be a gray zone in the northern part of the city of Primorska and in the north and in the area of the settlement of Lukyanovska. But today, pro-Ukrainian sources adjusted their maps and they removed the gray zone, which means that according to this information, the Ukrainians carry out a counter-offensive operation and force the Russians to fall back. Later, this video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. There are lots of updates, and according to the latest video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, as a result of a counter-offensive operation, the Ukrainians managed to recapture the settlement of Lukyanovska, and the flag was raised by Ukrainians right exactly at this point. So of course we are waiting for this video because this is just a picture. Maybe we will find more updates, maybe we will get additional proofs, and of course if this information is confirmed, of course we will adjust the map as well. So once again, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, the armed forces of Ukraine began a counter-offensive operation not just in the western Zaporozhye direction. We discussed this counter-offensive operation yesterday, but according to some resources, the Ukrainians began counter-attacking also in the western Zaporozhye direction. As a result of these counter-attacks, the Ukrainians managed to restore control over some territories. So let's wait and see what is going to be next, but this is very interesting. So which means that the Ukrainians are counter-attacking in the area of the city of Zaporozhye, and they are tasked to improve their position significantly and to force the Russians to fall back both from the western and from the eastern Zaporozhye directions. At the same time, we have changes in the Orekhov direction. This morning, pro-Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see how the units and soldiers of the 65th Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine were attacking positions of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation on the territory of the farms of the settlement of Novodanilovka and Andriivka. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map. I would like to remind it, according to different mappers, these territories were colored in Russian favor yesterday, according to different pro-Russian sources. And as you can see, this morning we received proofs that confirming this progress on the ground. So we have adjusted the map and we see that the Russians are getting closer and closer the city of Orekhov itself from the southwest and from the west. Furthermore, the Russians intensified their activities on the territory of the city itself. We have lots of videos of how the Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through the entire city of Orekhov. Lots of attacks with aviation, with FABs, with artillery. So indeed, we can say that the Russians are intensifying their activities, and obviously the Russians are planning to begin offensive operation in the direction of the city of Orekhov in coming days, and this is going to be an offensive operation, probably without any even support of the Russian troops from the northeast. Russians understand that they need to hurry. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 24 hours, during the previous night, we haven't received almost anything, just a summary published by the group of forces east about the situation on the ground, and some statements published by pro-Ukrainian sources. You know that now there are two types of pro-Ukrainian sources. One of them are saying that there is indeed a counter-offensive operation from the Ukrainian side, and another group of sources, pro-Ukrainian sources, are saying that there is no counter-offensive operation in this area, and it's just the media things from the Russian side. So anyway, we see that something is happening right now in this region, but most likely in coming weeks we will understand everything. As of now, there are too many fog of war above the territory. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka-Slaviansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received additional changes. We have small changes in the southern parts of the Konstantinovka agglomeration in the area of the settlement of Ivanopolia. Just a small correction of the map based on the video that was published by pro-Ukrainian source. Here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in this area, and based on this video we have adjusted the map, so the territory was completely colored. Furthermore, as for the Slaviansk direction, during the previous 12 hours, the Russians, according to different sources, managed to improve their position significantly. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 10th of February, this is the beginning of the 11th of February. We have adjusted the map based on the reports that were published by pro-Ukrainian sources. According to their changes, the Russians improved their position significantly, and a gray zone was additionally expanded in the direction of the settlements of Fedorovka, Druga, and Dibrova. So this is the situation by the end of the 10th, and this is the 11th of February, and the Russians are keeping advancing further in the northern direction. So the situation is very difficult for the armed forces of Ukraine, and it seems that we can see something like a breakthrough. Most likely the Ukrainians will not be able to stabilize the situation and to save control over these two villages, and in the end the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back further in the northern direction with the purpose to organize defense along the settlement of Raya Alexandrovka.
Hos os får du både A-kasse og lønsikring til Danmarks billigste pris, som giver dig op imod 7.500 kroner.
Now let's move further. As for the Kupiansk direction, during the previous 12 hours we made small changes. One of them took place in the area of the settlement of Boguslavka. A few days ago, neutral mappers reported that the Ukrainians began a counter-offensive operation in this area, and as a result of this counter-offensive, the Ukrainians managed to improve their positions. But we decided to wait for additional details and geolocations on videos. And the first video was published today. This video was published by the 10th Military Corps of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and in this video we can see how Ukrainians were moving through the settlement of Boguslavka and how Ukrainians were clearing this building. Most likely the video is archived, but this video confirms that during the previous days the Ukrainians indeed managed to improve their positions in this region. So based on this video we have adjusted the map, and these are the changes. Another important video update is coming from the area to the east of the settlement of Kivsharovka. Several pro-Russian sources adjusted the map and colored this dense network of the fortifications and the complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So based on the reports that we have received since the beginning of year, we're talking about control over the city of Kupiansk-Kozlovoy, we're talking about control over the settlement of Lushkovka, and this update we can say that the battle for the last stronghold on the Russian side of the river of Oskol is coming to the end. So we are talking about this small square. This is the last, let's say, foothold of the armed forces, a more or less reliable foothold on the Russian side. But due to the current situation and due to the reports and maps and changes of the map that we have made in the past, we understand that most likely in coming 2-3 weeks the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from the settlement of Kivsharovka, and the Russians will announce complete control over the eastern bank of the River Oskol. As for the northern directions, during the previous 12 hours we haven't received anything, just a small analysis of the Belgorod station, power station. According to this satellite picture, the Ukrainians managed to damage significantly this territory. I would like to remind you that the Belgorod authorities announced evacuation of the city, so we see that the situation in this region is also deteriorating. So this is the beginning of the 11th of February. We are waiting for a massive attack from the Russian side in coming hours, in coming night, and most likely the Russians will try to destroy either the Sumy power station or the Kharkiv power station completely, or some power stations in the western part of Ukraine, because according to different experts, the Russians are conducting a reconnaissance operation using satellites of the western part of Ukraine, and most likely the Russians will focus their attention on energy infrastructure in the Lvov and Vinnytsia regions, military-industrial complex facilities in the Ivano-Frankovsk and Khmelnytsky regions as well. And that's it for the short video. Military with Summary channel reminds to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.